Welcome to the Cosmic Inn. I'm your host, Rachel. Today we've got a special episode. I've got some guests on talking about manifestation myths and misconceptions. They're going to share with you some common misconceptions that they hear from their clients or in the space of manifestation and provide some clarity around that. But first off, I want to give a big thanks to all of our guest pass holders. Your support makes this show possible. I appreciate you so much. If you don't have a guest pass yet and you want to support the show or check out all the goodies that you get with that, please go ahead and visit cosmicinn.ca for more information. So let's get into some of these myths and misconceptions. There were a couple that I wanted to share myself with you, but I had so many great people come on and give me their takes on their own myths and misconceptions and provide some really great clarity. And I didn't want to make this episode too long. So one of my myths that I wanted to share was about collapsing the wave function, which you might have heard of. It's often used in conjunction with quantum leaping or people who will talk about quantum physics in relation to manifestation. Instead of talking about it on the show, I wrote a post about it on the website. You can check it out at cosmicinn.ca. But if you're not able to, the very, very short version of this is that collapsing the wave function is a mathematical equation that does not describe a physical phenomenon. The other myth that I see or misconception is around blocks. I hear so many people talk about a block. Oh, you must have a block. You're not manifesting the thing you want. There must be a block. Blockity block, block, block. And honestly, it irritates me so much. One of the reasons why it does is because it tends to give an excuse. It's sort of like almost like a throwaway reason why something isn't happening for somebody. And it can come with the feeling of a lot of heavy judgment. You know, if you've really been working on transforming yourself or working on a particular mindset or achieving a particular goal and it's not happening and you're kind of sitting in your frustration with it and you come and you confide in somebody that you trust or that you admire, or you're scrolling through your TikTok and it comes up on your For You page that some manifestation guru telling you about blocks, you can really internalize that and go, oh gosh, like I'm stopping myself from having this thing or from getting this thing. And it's I think it's an oversimplification of the complexities of being a human being and having a mind and the way that our brains are structured and ordered in order to perceive what's around us and take action. The way I like to reframe blocks is less about thinking of it as some sort of a static, heavy impediment, more to think about yourself as a conscious living creature. You create and maintain energetic systems. So thinking about what somebody else may call a block, thinking about it more as I'm maintaining this system through my habits. So either my action habits, my thought habits, my beliefs, my habitual feelings, my habitual reactions, whatever it is, I'm maintaining and propping up this thing that is distracting me from taking the action that I want to take or that I believe I should be taking in a particular area to experience transformation in that area. Let me give you an example. If you wanted to, let's say, be a speaker and but you have such stage fright, and every time you think about going on stage, you're just getting so nervous and you're like, oh my gosh. Now, somebody who might be talking a lot about blocks might say, oh, well, you've got to look back into your childhood and where does that block come from? And let's heal that trauma in you. And really, though, what could very well be happening is there's a normal, natural fear to public speaking. Even seasoned professionals feel it. Seasoned performers still have that little, there's a biological response, your heart gets racing, etc. Now, fear and excitement are actually two sides of the same coin. So it may be that you've just taken this feeling and taken these the feeling that you get and called it fear rather than calling it excitement. So those who can get up on stage and do it, what I've found is they call that feeling excitement. They feel that it's the exact same feeling, but they're processing it as this is exciting. Another thing is whenever we do something new, it always feels uncomfortable because our brain is not familiar with it. It's not making accurate predictions as to what the outcome will be or what the experience will be. And so it feels uncomfortable. And that is all totally normal. So I think sometimes we throw this word blocks out when really these are just kind of habitual things. They're totally normal and they are totally reworkable in our lives without having to make it seem scary. Where that energetic maintenance piece comes in is when we're having that initial spark of feeling. The thought is, I'm terrified to go on stage, which then leads to I'm no good at this, which then leads to I can't do this, and this is just runaway thought freight train. Now, this is not a quote unquote block. This is a story and an energetic system that is being maintained. Every time the trigger happens, this system comes in and it's being maintained and strengthened by allowing it to run through and to add additional things and this and that and this and to be strengthening it. So it's not like a static thing that's like a block or like it's there permanently. It's actually being nurtured every time it comes up. And so one way to divert that is to have new experiences, to do your reframing, to notice the loop and where you can to interject and to divert the loop. So instead of thinking of it like a static block, you want to think of I'm maintaining some kind of energetic system here. What am I maintaining? What is it that I'm doing habitually that's causing this to distract me from what it is that I really want to do? So hopefully that reframe kind of helps and maybe makes you feel less judgmental about a block or less like it's some grand thing that's like insurmountable. I could go on and on about this, but I've got some really great guests here to share with you their manifestation myths and misconceptions and clarify some of those. So let's get to it. I'm so excited. I'm here with Dr. Emily Sadowski. She's an author, coach, and facilitator. Tell us, what is your manifestation myth or misconception?
Okay. I would like to talk about how although it's positioned as always perfect and divine guidance, intuition is not always experienced that way.
Okay. You mean, because I've not really heard that it's always divine guidance, but do you find a lot of people feel that way? Like, oh, I'm being spoken to by my spirit guides or what have you?
Yes. I feel like that people either experience it that way or they think they're supposed to. And that's also why I came here to, bring this myth.
Yeah.
The idea that it's always perfectly true. And if it's not true, then it wasn't your intuition.
Okay. So like if the thing that didn't happen or the circumstance you suspected was not as you suspected, then there's this idea that, oh, it wasn't my intuition, it was my fear or my something. Is that, yeah?
Yeah, my belief, my ideas, or I'm somehow wrong because I didn't get it right. It came, from the divine, fully perfect. And now I've messed it up somehow.
Okay. So then what is intuition?
Glad you asked. So intuition is a mode of consciousness. It's a way of knowing that happens between us and a part of ourselves that does stay connected to all that is.
Okay.
But it also sometimes comes from other sources. There's many sources. Some of them are just subconscious processing that, we've just not been paying attention while a part of our consciousness was making sense of something. It also is future knowing.
So do you mean like clairvoyance?
Yeah, but yes, clairvoyance or clair anything really, because it can come through any of the senses.
Okay. Oh yeah. Sorry. Clairvoyance is visual clarity. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah,
and there's also clairaudience and olfactory. Like they're all your senses come into play.
I smell cookies. I think that means I'll eat some later.
Yeah. Or actually there are people who sometimes they have a smell that points them to something either good or bad. Like, yes, this is right for you, or no, stay away.
Really? They'll get like an odor if something like literally, like a situation literally stinks.
Yes. And so, but that's not telling you the content of the information necessarily, but it is pointing you, it's a tell to, hey, pay attention. And because there's so many different tells, people can experience their intuition in like a million ways. And so if we believe that it's only supposed to come, and clairvoyance is a good example because the movie version of intuition is like we all of a sudden have a vision and like, oh, now we know exactly what to do.
Yeah.
And that's really not how most people experience it.
Okay. So because I've researched intuition myself, and I always thought it was data processing. So it's like, because we get so much information, we actually get too much information, and we're not able to process it all due to the limits in our biology and our psychology, et cetera. And so intuition is more like the entire system of the body, and even that like extended, maybe like spiritual version, all chiming in to come to a consensus. And one of the reasons why I learned it's not always right, because I used to think it was supposed to be like clairvoyance or the other ones, knowing the future, essentially. So then, I would also be disappointed. It was like, if I couldn't get a hit, or if it felt like, well, I don't know, it feels like it could be 60% this and 40% that. And what I realized is, because the future is not predetermined, your intuition, even if it was sort of thinking of what would happen in the future, is not perfect anyway, because there's so many variables that could shift and change what the outcome could be.
Yeah, if we're talking about future knowledge, like all you really can get is a sense of the possible, because when things haven't unfolded yet into manifestation, and I mean that in like the real sense of like they don't exist yet, then it is possible to touch in on some potential and even likely potential, but it's not guaranteed that it will unfold that way. Partly because usually we have a part to play in how it happens, but also because so many other things are involved in how it might happen.
Thank you so much for sharing today. Can you tell folks where they can find you online? Yeah,
totally. I have a website. It is myname.com. So www.emilysadowski.com. You can see my book there, and I have some resources that relate to this as well, like how to tell the difference between fear and intuition, for example. I'm also on the socials, so you can find me there.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This was great.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you for joining me today. I'm so excited to have Cheryl Sutherland. She's an entrepreneur, speaker, and coach. Thank you for joining us on the Cosmic In today.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I love to talk the woo-woo. Actually, funny enough, if you're watching the video, I just made these new stickers and I've just got Manifest Magic staring at me. So Look at all the things just happening in alignment for us. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, on that note, then share with us your manifestation myth or misconception.
Yeah. So my biggest myth or misconception is the way that people feel like they can affect other people, and have the ability to manifest for other people. Now, one of the biggest things that I noticed, at least for me, when I would say like, oh yeah, I can do this, I can create this, et cetera, like I have no issues with it. And then notice the person that I was having that conversation with actually gets that goal. I was like, well, wait a second. That was my goal. I was supposed to have that. What's happening here? And I thought I was actually manifesting for someone else. Turns out that me saying what I was saying with such confidence and with such clarity, they had no resistance to it, while I still had resistance within myself. Oh. And so they ended up manifesting that for themselves. I planted the seed. However, because they had no resistance to it, because they heard it coming from me, they were excited and were able to receive it. Even I've noticed some people that are just, for your kids or for a particular person, you want this for someone. Like, I know so many times people will be like putting out messages of like sending love and light or manifestation for somebody that's ill or sick or going through a situation.
That's what I was thinking about, those illness, Yeah.
Exactly. However, if that person is ready to go, even if it's not their physical form right here, but like their higher self is like, yeah, no, like we did what we needed to do. We learned what we needed to learn. We affected who we needed to affect. And it's time for us to boogie. No amount of like praying or scripting or anything is going to change that for them. And I say that very clearly as someone who is a very powerful manifester, and also for somebody that also tends to be over responsible for other people, their feelings, and is a people pleasing recovery or people pleaser recovery, because there's so much guilt that you often have because you're like, well, why was I not able to push this? Why was I not able to do this? And so I say that to say, you could want the best for someone, you can see the vision for them, but it's really up to them and their own journey to actually let that fall into place and to like ask for what you want, if that is what you want for it, and let it go.
So it sounds like you can't force something onto somebody. They have to already be able to be capable of creating that in their life anyway. And but what about like assistance? Like, because I'm a big believer in co-creation, and I do think that other people's energies contribute to amplifying your own. So what about not necessarily like forcing on somebody or manifesting for them in the sense that they're not doing anything and you're kind of doing all the work, but what about like amplification or like that kind of support?
Definitely.
That?
I'm totally in alignment with that. The mastermind process is one of my favorite processes because again, instead of me saying, let's say, for example, if I'm in a mastermind and I say, I want to make $1 million this year, all the people that I'm saying that to have no resistance to it. And they also want it for me. So it's easier for them to co-create with my higher self versus me still like being racked with like guilt and doubt and all those different things.
I'm so fascinated about this because I do sort of lean towards this idea of collective consciousness and collective energies. And it sounds like even in your mastermind group, for example, when you share your vision and they agree with you, it's like they're reflecting back to you what's possible. And so I know, having been in masterminds as well, which I love and highly recommend, when you're kind of sitting maybe even in self-doubt, those other people, those other voices believing in you can really give you the strength and the encouragement to take action or to create change and things like that. Those other people can either help you chip away at your limiting beliefs, or they can build them up and strengthen them. And which is why it's really careful who you share your vision with, because if you've got those negative people in your life, or the doubters or the fearful people, the people with a lot of anxiety around every corner, watch out. You might not want to share those things because they're going to strengthen and build up.
When I say that, again, you can't manifest for another person. You don't have that ability because that person has their own like goals and dreams and like their own internal things that they are on the way to grow into. You can support them in, again, getting there a little bit faster or slowing them down. And really, I mean, and it's also up to me whether or not I choose to receive that.
It is still going to come from the internal to the external. And really what's external is either validating, just validating, period, what's coming from the internal.
Mm-hmm. And I will say that one of the things that I've heard that I really love, a lovely quote that's like, sometimes you don't have the confidence, sometimes you don't have the positivity or like whatever attribute. And so sometimes you need to borrow it from somebody, and you need to just be around a person that's very confident or very clear or very smart or like, just really good at problem solving. And you just borrow a little bit of that from them, and then you're able to get more of what you want. So I say that again to say that if there's somebody around you that can support you with that, like when people are around me, they feel more confident, they feel more themselves, they feel safe. And I'm very grateful to say that that is a gift that I do have. Therefore, it allows them to get clear on what they want and move through a lot quicker. I don't manifest for other people. Even though I'm a manifesting generator, I don't manifest for other people. However, I help create the space that allows them to be their best self and manifest things for themselves easier. Yeah.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing this. I got some good stuff out of it. Share with the people how they can find you online.
Stalk me on the internet. It's not stalking if I give you permission. So feel free to hang out with me. I'm mostly on Instagram. My Instagram is Please Notes Goods. For those that missed it, I have a whole line of affirmation-filled goods to help you become your favorite version of you, including things like our manifestation planner, our affirmation cards, all these little bits to help you on your journey. So you're going to want to check me out on Instagram. My website is www.pleasenotes.com. Please as in please and thank you. Notes as in notes of love. See you soon.
Okay, I'm here with Lisa McGrath, who is a personal growth and mindset coach. Welcome, Lisa. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, I am thrilled to be here with you. You and I just don't get to spend enough time together, so this is amazing.
I know, right? Yes, I know. I'm always actually really glad to be like, oh, I have something. Oh, I could, I go through my list of people I can connect with, and I'm like, yay, I haven't seen them in so long. And you're absolutely one of them. But today we're talking about myths and misconceptions around manifestation. And we were starting to have a really good conversation right before I hit record. So why don't you kick it off and tell me what you think a myth or a misconception around manifestation is?
Yeah, we were talking earlier, as you just said, about mindset and manifestation and how they sort of they're connected, definitely, but there are some ways that they are not the same, and it gets super confusing. And the manifestation part, I think, is something I'm still working on myself. Yeah. The mindset part is the part that I think leads to the manifestation. And that's really my focus in my work with people who I work with. And what I find is people often come to the mindset work thinking it's just, a positive thinking, like a positive attitude and a really determined attitude, like sort of push your way through it. And they figure that's the mindset that's going to win them the day, whatever the win is supposed to look like. And it's just so much more than that. I mean, coming through my own work, there's a lot of unlearning and relearning that has to happen with mindset. And it attaches itself to so many parts of our lives. And we're completely unaware of so much of it.
I'm just jumping in after editing this segment and realizing that Lisa and I got on such a tangent that we really didn't wrap up in a bow what it was that we were trying to clarify in terms of the myth and the misconception. So I'm just going to summarize it, interjecting to summarize, which is her whole thing was a lot of people think that mindset is just about positive thinking and determination, and it's a lot more than that. It's what it is your mindset is how you respond to the world around you. It's all your habits, it's all your reactions, it's all your beliefs, it's your thoughts, and it's your results too, and your circumstances as well as part of your mindset too. So changing your mindset is a lot more than just positive thinking. It's more than just determination. because there's so many complex aspects to your mindset, and a lot of it's really interwoven with a whole bunch of things, including your personal experiences, your culture, the times that you're living in, etc. Why don't you tell people how they can find you online?
Yeah, I love LinkedIn and Instagram. And so I am there under my name, Lisa McGrath at LinkedIn, or Lisa McGrath Art on Instagram, or my company name, which is Cavea Studio, which is Cavea Studio.
I'm really excited here to have Nicole Manzer. She's an entrepreneur, coach, and podcast host. For the past 15 years, has owned the hair salon Manzer Studio in Toronto. Welcome to the show, Nicole. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. This is great.
It's my pleasure. So tell us, what is your manifestation myth or misconception?
Well, I really hear about so many people saying, oh, I'm trying to manifest this, or they just in a blanket statement going, oh, I just believe it to be true, and it's true. And that's not essentially how it works.
So it sounds like the myth is, I want to manifest something. So there's like desire, and then I believe that it can happen, and then poof, end of story, period, done. Is that?
Yeah, they don't do anything in order to make the manifestation happen. So it's not just a close my eyes, I think a coffee is going to appear to me, and it will appear to me. It might, and that's kind of cool if it does, but it's not necessarily just that easy. There are a few more steps in there that is not widely talked about.
Okay, so what are the steps?
So the first is like really knowing what you want, like have the true intention about what it is you want. So I love using the analogy of coffee because everybody can visualize a nice, fresh coffee in your hand, or a tea if you're a tea
I
drinker.
hate coffee so much. So not me, but yeah, I get the gist.
What's your tea of choice?
I do this. It's like a iced tea kind of thing. So it's got caffeine in it. And yeah, juice. So
okay. So like, but you know what it feels like in your hand, like the cup or the mug, the thermos that you're using, what it feels like in your hand. You can visualize what it tastes like in your mouth, like the first sip of it, and then the feeling of it, which is generally what most people miss, of receiving it, of somebody bringing that tea to you, putting it in your hand, and the first sip. So what I find a lot of people do is, if they're trying to manifest tea or money or something along those lines, is that they put the want out there, and they don't actually sit there and feel like they have it already. So they believe that they can have it, but they don't believe that they have it already. So the way that I interpret manifestation is, I believe that when you feel like you have the thing already, that's what I really focus on when I'm trying to manifest something, is the feeling of having it already. When people say, oh, I want to manifest blah, 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 and then nothing happens, then they're just strengthening their resolve of nothing to happen, or they're strengthening the want of something rather than the actual having it. Does that make sense?
Obviously, we hear it a lot. It's in a lot of books. It's that, I can think back as far as maybe Neville Goddard, who talked about that visceral sensation. Yeah, but it to a lot, and I actually, in my own comments on for the Cosmic In on TikTok, there was somebody who said, I want $1 million. And somebody commented underneath, change that to have. I have $1 million.
Yes.
So similar concept, where it's like having that, the feeling of having it. Why does that work? Why are we telling people this? I mean, at the end of the day, it seems like it just seems like a cliche. It seems like, it almost seems like an excuse for why you don't have something. Oh, well, did you feel it as if you have it? Oh, well, that's why. Ha ha ha, silly you. But what's happening?
I think what you're asking is that, why do we have to believe this thing to be true in order for it to be true?
Well, I think it's this idea of like the visceral visualization and of having it is like the like a key to manifesting or
I have so many places in my head that I want to go with this. I'm going to use hair for an example. So, because this is what I do for a daily basis. The best way that I can manifest on a daily basis is I have somebody in my chair and we're having a conversation about how they want their hair, what they want their hair. So we're having that conversation. They're speaking out loud what the belief that they can attain. We're getting clear on what it is exactly that they want. So we're sharing the image. And so as a hairstylist, I'm taking that visual that they're creating and I'm kind of imprinting it on my brain. And then I'm allowing my hands to create that vision within the realms that I know what hair can do. And then at the end of the day, when we blow dry, finish, look in the mirror, we have manifested a haircut on their head by the act of talking, so believing it to be true, and then doing, and then the manifestation happens. And so I love this analogy, especially if you're a hairdresser and you can understand it a bit more, and taking that and applying that analogy to other things in life. So if we can talk it through, so we're either talking, we're writing it down, or we're visualizing what we want or what we believe it to be true, doing the things that we need to do in order to attain or achieve that result, just by those two things alone, we are going to result in a manifestation of whatever it is that you desire. So that's the simple form that I find to be kind of broken down. I think it gets a lot more complex into the greater scheme of things. But at the end of the day, believing, visualizing, getting clear on what you want, doing things that get you towards what you want, whether it even, if we go back to the coffee analogy, whether it even is mentioning to your partner or to a friend, man, I'd really like a cup of coffee right now. And then that can kind of come your way at the end of the day.
So it sounds like the visualization part is like putting in your order as to what it is that you would like. But there's that piece that people don't talk about is the taking action.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And I love that because it is putting in your order. It is putting in your order.
Well, I'll tell you one thing I do think about visualization is that it strengthens neural networks is one of the things that it does. So if your manifestation involves habit change, so like wellness goals, financial goals, relationship goals, those often involve habit changes, which would require new neural networks. You need to build new patterns. And so visualization certainly helps and strengthens that. And there's lots of research to back that up. Athletes do visualization. Another thing that perhaps happens that, people suspect more and more, and there has been research into this to support it, is the idea of broadcasting. So when you visualize, you're actually broadcasting your intent into the quantum field. Another thought and idea is because thoughts are made of the same things as reality, your thoughts are real. And because everything is just an excitement in the quantum fields that's been coherently formed into a temporary form in the field as reality, your thoughts are the same thing, forming an excitation in the quantum field, but you can do it at will. Whereas the external, like quote unquote, reality is through the movement and the shifting and changing of energy. So as you create it, draw it forth from the field in your imagination, you're sending out this blueprint for how energy should shift and change into and coalesce into reality. So that's my understanding of it.
So when you're doing your visualization, then if you're not detailed then with your visualization, then your visualization could be a little bit more fuzzy.
But reality is fuzzy too, because when I'm looking around my room, for example, I'm not actually taking in all the details. There's a lot more happening in in everything around me than I'm even noticing or being aware of. But there is, what is important about being in my room is that I feel comfortable. I feel cozy. I feel like it doesn't matter so much of all the little, oh, there's a little bit of dust in the corner. I don't think there is actually, but I can't even see the corner. But it's more like I feel at peace here. I feel at home. The temperature it's a perfect temperature. All those kinds of things. I'm surrounded by little objects that I love. It's very convenient in here the way I've set it up.
I love the really technical side of getting into the visualization and what it does with connecting the kind of the neural pathways and how it can strengthen, and also touching on having to change your habits and who you are habitually in order to become the future self that you want to be.
Tell the people how they can find you online.
So you can find me at manzerhair.com, which is the website. I'm on Instagram at nicole.manzer, and my podcast is Positive Image.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm with Liz Moore Fredrickson. She's a communication specialist and coach. Welcome, Liz, to the Cosmic Inn.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So you have a manifestation myth or misconception that we're going to clarify today. Tell me what it is.
So I just see so often that people are directed by their external circumstances. So you'll see people say something like, okay, once I get that promotion, then I'll feel successful, or then I'll be successful. Or once I get this advanced degree, well, then I'll be smart, then I'll be accomplished. And it's actually the reverse, that we need to be guided by what is internal, what's inside of ourselves. And we have to feel that accomplishment. We have to feel that state of success, whatever it is that we want to see in the 3D world. We have to be that first before the external manifestations will occur. And it reminds me a lot of Earl Nightingale uses a little thing about that. He says, it's like sitting beside a cold stove and saying, give me heat, and then I'll give you the wood. And it's like, no, you have to do the wood first. You have to give yourself the fuel first, and then you'll see the heat outside of yourself.
But is that when you confuse the manifestation as like an outcome versus the manifestation as what the outcome gives you?
Oh, that's a good question. I think there is a lot of confusion about that. Like people, it's that whole journey versus destination thing, right? That people want to get somewhere. They want to be somewhere. Whereas what I'm learning in my own journey along the way is that it's actually what the journey makes of you as you reach for that goal, as you try to manifest that goal. That's what matters far more than the actual achievement.
I think you mentioned getting some certain kind of job promotion or degree would equal some kind of level of success. So then how do the two equate? Like I'm waking up in the morning and I'm feeling successful. So I go back onto the couch and watch TV, or like what?
We have to think about what we want and who we want to be. And like just to get back to the core of the myth that I'm addressing is that, we have like our conscious mind, our subconscious mind, we have the activities that our bodies do for us based on what our conscious and subconscious mind does. But what we end up doing is we often look at our external results over here and let that direct what our mind and our body do next, instead of saying like, okay, this is what I envision for 2025, or this is what I envision for the next quarter of the year. This is what I want to accomplish. And I'm going to like see that. I'm going to feel that. I'm going to embody that. I'm going to fuse with that and do that from the inside out and have that influence the external instead of the other way around. And I think people get too much caught on this like loop of like, oh, I got fired from my job. I'm not, I'm a failure then, or I didn't do as well on this test as I wanted to, or my spouse is angry with me today. Well, I guess I'm just a jerk then. And, and it's really just kind of sad that we do this to ourselves, that we have to create from inside.
On the show, we've already talked about how your perception and your beliefs influence your ability to see what's available in the field. Mm-hmm. I think what the major difference is, it's this idea that and you said it earlier, which is the thing will give you a certain feeling or a certain status or a certain whatever. And nothing external can give you those things. They always have to come from the internal. And I've spent a lot of time thinking of this in certain fields of my own life, in certain areas of my own life. And you can't recognize what it is unless you have the internal pattern, the internal perception for it in the field. So it's not so much that, if you feel good and you feel successful, you're going to get the job. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter if you get the job or not. You feel good, you feel successful, and you're following what gives you more of that feeling and what gives you more of that joy. Really, all that's happening is when you embody those things, you feel better and it oozes out of you more easily.
Yes.
And you're able to flow because you're able to perceive those things in your environment and in your external. And you don't need a lot of external validation in order to feel gratitude, in order to feel joy, in order to feel, what's that word, like glimmers and limerence and all those kinds of yummy, delicious things that make life delicious and joyful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, this has been, I think we could go on forever, Liz. Yeah. But why don't you tell the people where they can find you online?
You can find me on my website at onemoreliz.com. And you can also find me on Instagram at that's the number one in this case, One More Liz. And happy to connect with you.
I'm so excited to be here with Amanda Ingram. She's the Joyful Oracle. Welcome to the show, Amanda.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Okay, so share with us your manifestation myth or misconception.
Yeah, so I feel like there's this myth that in order to manifest what you desire, you have to focus solely on like what it is that you want in the most great detail that you can. And for a lot of us, that's really hard to do. And I think what we really should be focusing on is us. Do we feel worthy of receiving? Like kind of really shifting it from external to internal.
Okay. So I have heard that before with the focusing on your desire. They say like with a burning desire is one of the phrases, like just being so inflamed by this and consumed. And I've heard coaches talk about when you visualize, it has to be like so detailed. And, I've actually heard people say, oh, you haven't gotten the thing yet. It's because you didn't provide enough detail to the universe that it doesn't know what you want because you didn't specify the model of laptop that you wanted or which, how many horsepowers do you want in your car? You didn't specify. That's why you don't have it yet. Like I've literally heard people say that.
Yeah.
What's the disconnect then? Like if you, like, let's say you do want something or you even need something mm-hmm. and you're focusing on the details, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe it's like, how do you know that you're not feeling worthy of it? Like, wouldn't you just automatically default and assume you feel worthy for it or that you deserve it? Or like, what's that about?
Yeah. I mean, I think that would be the common thought, right? Like, I need this. So I want this. And if I'm giving it in detail and it's coming in, I should have it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where we start to go, oh my gosh, I'm doing something wrong. Oh, like this is all on me and I have to figure it all out. And in actuality, I would really ask yourself, like, well, what does it look like when you get that thing? How does that feel? When you think about getting that thing, do you instantly start to think about all the ways that could go wrong? Do you feel a certain way about yourself? Like there's so much that happens internally for us when we think about what we want. And especially those of us who are hypervigilant, those of us who've had a lot of stuff going on on, we're kind of, our brains are just wired to come up with all the reasons why we shouldn't or why it's not going to work, instead of focusing on why we do want it. So it's almost like we're literally subconsciously, to protect ourselves, being like, yes, I want this. Yes, I need this. Oh, but like getting that, what does that mean? And like that, number one, is really normal when you're somebody who, you know, has dealt with a lot in life. And so when we kind of think of it in a different way of going, well, what if we shift this into giving the universe some credit and being like, the universe wants you to have things. It does. It wants you to have good things. And yes, life's, but ultimately the universe wants you to do well. So let's work on, instead of what you want so you can think about it and figure out all the ways, why don't we just go, do I believe I deserve this? Do I believe I'm good and worthy of the things that I want in my life? Right. And when we can kind of shift it into that, it, number one, is a more gentle energy. It kind of takes a little bit of that pressure off of ourselves, and we get to focus on us. That's kind of how I'm really seeing that energy coming in.
I totally relate to this because absolutely, like as a business owner, you would think, oh, like I want a multi-million-dollar company with a whole bunch of staff, and we have this like beautiful downtown office, and you know, and like I'm picturing like the wooden floors and like the, you know, the all the windows and like all the cool things about my like downtown office with my staff. But yeah, you're right. It does then kick in like, oh, well, now I've got to be a manager. I've got to like hire people. I got to find great people. I've heard terrible stories about, you know, people getting ripped off by their employees. So yeah, you're right. You build this laundry list. Oh, I got to find a lease in Toronto. Gosh darn, like a place downtown. That's like, I start to like mentally
starts to snowball.
Gosh, these are a lot of stuff I got to take care of. So I've definitely had that. If you have a desire, you have a vision, you have a goal, it's about not cutting off the pathways to that goal due to how you think you're supposed to get there.
Yes.
When you have this like internal flame of I'm worthy of this and I deserve it, you almost like blast away this concept of, well, I've got to struggle to get there. It's going to be hard to get there, because at the core of you, you're like, no, this is mine. And this is going to flow to me in a way that's beautiful and miraculous, regardless of how I think it's going to happen based on where I'm at, because the path that I see is based on my past experiences, my past knowledge, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm going to allow the path to forge in front of me in the most easy, effortless, beautiful way possible.
Yeah, exactly. And when we're so focused on the details and the how and how we're going to get there, we may be missing what's actually where we're actually being guided, because we're like, no, it's this way. It's this way. Yeah. It's almost like giving yourself like more freedom to go with the flow versus like a very set out structured path that you have set before you.
And then taking it back to that worthiness, feeling like you are capable and worthy of that is what gets you there.
It's not just as simple as being like, this is what I want. Poof, here it is. There's so much more to it than that. And I actually think that's almost a beautiful thing, because it allows us to truly kind of go within and learn about ourselves and understand who we are at the core of our being. And that is never a bad thing.
This was wonderful. And thank you for joining me. Tell the people how they can connect with you online.
Yeah, so I am at The Joyful Oracle on all platforms. You're welcome to join me. I would love to have you part of the community.
Yay. Okay, thanks for joining us. I'm with Lindsay Johnson. They're an entrepreneur, fitness lover, and hot cocoa aficionado. Welcome to the show, Lindsay. Thanks for joining me today.
I am super excited to talk about this today. Thank you so much for having me.
Yay, my pleasure. Okay, so tell us, what is your manifestation myth or misconception?
Okay, I love talking about this one. It is the modern day misinterpretation of survival of the fittest.
Okay.
right? I was reading this book called Survival of the Friendliest that talked about how we as a species sort of became the dominant humanoid species. But it was our capacity to collaborate. And this quote, it was the person who wrote it is the person who said it is Herbert Spencer. He's a philosopher, and he was referencing the Darwin's Origin of Species, and he talked about this concept of the survival of the fittest.
Right.
And in our modern day world, that has been sort of co-opted under the sort of self-made man, whoever is strongest wins, whoever is more powerful and
the
dominant, aggressive. Exactly.
Yeah.
But actually fittest meant our ability to like continue on the species and the health of our communities. And that it's actually all survival of the friendliest, and why we were able to become the dominating species in the world of Homo sapiens is because of our capacity to collaborate and take care of each other as a community. That's what allowed us to beat out other species and become what we are now.
I love that. I'm glad you mentioned it, because there's this line that goes around in personal development, which is nobody's coming to save you. And I absolutely hate that. There's obviously a lot of other ones. I feel like in Western culture, especially, that there is a lot of emphasis on individuality.
Yeah.
And when you actually get down to the roots of that self-made man, I'm doing air quotes for those who can't see, they do have a lot of support and a lot of help and a lot of resources around them and a lot of privilege, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, this idea, this thing that we're being spoon fed, where it's, pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of mentality. Nobody's coming to save you. These are all kind of maybe misinterpretations of other things that may be true, but are kind of like distorted a little bit in our current ways.
And there is a lot around, especially in America, and the rise of the Industrial Revolution, the rise of capitalism, this sort of image of the rugged individualism. But the reality is that's just not true. That they're literally, in the history of all things, it has never been about one person making it on their own. We literally, that's not how we survive. That's not how we function. And what happens is we get this, first of all, we let ourselves use that as an excuse. Some people let themselves use it as an excuse to dominate or abuse or, step on other people for their own benefit. But also it prevents us from reaching out and connecting and asking for help and asking for support. Because we've somehow internalized that as some sort of personal failing, that we can't do it on our own. When in reality, we've never been able to do things on our own. That's not the way that we function.
So then so if you are trying to manifest or create something in your life, how do we invite more? It sounds like we need to invite more community in, invite more people into what it is that we're doing. Yeah. Are there some, like, just one or two ways that we can do that today? If you were listening on the podcast, you can stop listening and go do those things.
Go do this thing. I would say the first thing is to reframe your mindset and understand that that is an illusion, the self-made person. Reframe the mindset that I will never be able to accomplish anything great or meaningful on my own. That's just simply not the way it's done. And so instead of thinking I have to do it all myself or I'm a failure, literally reframe that into I cannot accomplish what I want to do unless I collaborate and co-create with people who share that vision or want to have the same thing. Right. Yeah. So I think that's the first big thing, is have that reframe. And then I would also love for folks to really tap into where they are internalizing a sense of failure. And again, if you could see my face, for those listening to the podcast, my face is full disbelief, failure, because you need help. Absolutely.
Okay.
not. That is
like normalize that.
Normalize
it's normal to get help.
You need help. It's a normal thing, and we all need help. And so I always tell folks, think about how quickly you would drop everything and jump up to help a friend who needed you. Mm-hmm. And yet you assume people won't do the same for you. You see yourself as a burden, as you should be able to do it all. So again, really normalize. It's okay for me to need help. It's normal for me to need help. People want to help me. Right. Yeah. And so we have the reframe, we have that normalization of needing help. And then I would say, start asking people to help you. There's things as simple as, hey, I really have to do this chore that I'm avoiding. Will you come over and just sit with me while I do it?
Yeah.
Or there's something I'm avoiding because it's causing anxiety. If I give it to you, will you do it for me? You know, or things like, I want to, for heaven's sakes, I need a ride to the airport. Will you help me build this shelf? Like we need to reach out and ask for the help and support we need and continue to build community with people who also want to help us and also want to ask for help. So it's the reframe, it's the normalize, and then start actually getting into action and asking for help. Prove to yourself that when you get help, life gets easier. And you feel more connected to the people in your life.
Yeah, I love that. So thank you for that. Tell the people where they can find you online.
Yes, come and connect with me over on Instagram. You'll find me as Radical Linz. If you happen to be a business owner and you're into that kind of thing, you could check out my podcast, Work Less, Play More, or come follow me on YouTube also as Radical Linz.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Well, that was it. That was all of our guests today sharing their manifestation myths and misconceptions. I hope you got something out of that. And please go follow these folks online, show them some love, and come show the Cosmic In some love. Go ahead and follow the podcast, leave a comment, a review. Come check out our guest pass on our website, cosmicin.ca. And thank you for joining me today. I will see you next time at the Cosmic In.